know, man. Oh, blinking light. That means 1 minute to go, right?
Yeah. Blinking red.
It's got the blinking lights of red. There's a sheet. I've got it stuck up here. Okay, I'm really loud, right? Is that too loud? Good. So, it really is. That is just nerve-wracking. Super not cool, man. I think red lights are bullshit. And I mean, DevOps may be, but this is definitely, and that is really going to block the piss out of me. So if I get too loud, you're welcome to leave. I will not feel bad. Oh, that is true. I will not feel bad. I'm going to tell you that in a minute. If you get up and leave, if you get pissy, I'm not going to leave. So I got a green light. That means we're starting. Hi, everybody. My name is Mykel Alvis. I talk really loud and generally really fast. So I got a lot of slides to go through. And this is my talk, and it is, in fact, called DevOps is Bullshit. Now, if you got your feelings hurt or your underwear is a little bit wadded up, or maybe you thought this was a bad title for a talk, you are perfectly welcome to go somewhere else. There are other places, a whole place, like a building you can go into. You will not have to hear me if you get all the way around the corner. And you don't have to watch this. I am not going to make anybody do that. But I am going to do the thing I always do. I always do the TLDR on my talk. This is the TLDR. The name, the methods of management, and the means of recruitment for retention for nominal DevOps practitioners is bullshit. Now, if you want to leave, you're not going to get anything more than that. You'll just get all the excitement associated with watching me say it. Now, the second warning here is I have a tendency to use some of the words that they do not allow you to say on television, or I guess they kind of do now, but whatever. And so if you have children who are not used to those words in the room, I would suggest that perhaps you leave. I am not necessarily the most profane or obscene human being on the planet, but I am also not the least. So you've been warned. There's red. All right. So yes, it is me. Again, I've done this before. I've been up here in this same space. You've all been trapped in the room with me about 10 years ago. I did get some things wrong last time. I'm just kidding, I didn't. And I did talk some smack last time. And that is not me kidding, I totally did. Again, I am a complete nerd and there's my nerd cred. However, if you saw last time, you will notice I've had an alignment swap. Last time I was lawful neutral with evil tendencies and now we've gotten a little different. However, you will find that in 5e that is completely allowed. So in regular D&D, you can piss off. Now, yeah, I don't really play the games you play, and I don't even play D&D, and I certainly don't play 5e, but it doesn't matter. I remain completely committed to deterministic outcomes. I know how stupid that sounds. Determinism is impossible. It is not a thing you can do. It is literally impossible unless you control literally the physics of the universe. As far as I know, none of you do. And if you can, we will talk later about that. So, I am also not a mind-controlling, shape-shifting lizard man. I do not control the government, and I am very unlikely to be eating children. I am voluntarily unemployed. That is not the same thing as being retired. Retired people have money. I am poor. If you want to know why I'm voluntarily unemployed, it is a relatively long story that will far exceed the time I'm giving up here, so we're not going to talk about that. You can find me here, and you can find me as Mykel Alvis basically everywhere. Now, I did get the way I am reasonably honestly. I've been at this for some 46 years. I know I look really pretty, but I am, in fact, 56 years old. Do the math. I started when I was 10. And as a person who starts with then I'm 10, you know, I didn't know shit. I still kind of don't. But I am been doing this longer than some of your parents have known each other, except for itself, and you guys are super old. So this is one of the few places where I'm like not the oldest person in the room. I have been through this suck a few times, and I didn't like some of the things about it. Now, this is a thing in 3 acts. It's not a 3-act play. There's not like the beginning, the Shit, I remember the 3 acts. The setup, the climax, and the something or another in the middle. But we're going to do this setup anyway. So I have some caveats about this. This is not about you. If you are a nominal DevOps practitioner, which I will talk about later, this is not about you. This is about me. This is about my life and my experience. And if you don't like the way it worked for me, well, good. You didn't have to fucking live it. So if you get your feelings hurt about anything I say or you think I'm wrong, you're probably right about you, but I'm probably right about me. And we're going to use a glossary because your words and your definitions are probably not as precise as mine because I know that you are made out of human meat. And human meat very frequently has very imprecise words. So we're going to start with knowledge. What does it mean to know something? I have extremely strict words about this. I don't think people know very much of anything. I think you believe a lot of stuff. I think you have evidence, and your evidence justify beliefs in things. I think there's a lot of justified belief in the world. I got into a huge argument with a man when I said, dude, you don't know that your wife loves you, just believe it. Wow, tell somebody that one. Who are the married people in town? All right, hey man, like you don't know it because you're not telepathic. Like, tell me I'm wrong. Prove it. Say I'm wrong. My wife loves me. Prove it. You can't. That's the difference between a justified belief and true knowledge, big T truth. Now, nihilism, this one's a little different. Got dark all of a sudden, right? So nihilism is the belief that nothing basically matters. But when you put the two together, you get something super cool. You get epistemological nihilism, which is you can't know anything or it's so hard that you might not bother. I am not an epistemological nihilist. I'm real close though. If you think you have real beliefs, cool. If you think you know things, you're probably full of shit. If it's not math, and I mean the numbers part, arithmetic, basic algebra, some geometry, and then real physics, strongly demonstrable, but not necessarily non-contextual, then you don't really know it, you just kind of believe it a lot of the time. And the most important one, everybody hates this. So naive realism is the idea that you have your shit together and everybody else is an idiot. Everybody seen the George Carlin Idiots and Maniacs skit, right? So you're driving down the road and you're driving at a perfectly reasonable speed and you're like being passed by all these maniacs that are going far too fast. They're going too fast because you are clearly driving the right speed. And then you come up behind some idiot who's going way too slow. Yeah, I hate that guy, right? I mean, obviously I drive the right speed. Naive realism is the belief and the tendency to believe that we see the world objectively correct. Well, you are wrong, you do not. You see the world subjectively like the rest of us do. This is going to come up later, don't worry. The people I'm talking about, all of our friends and neighbors, my favorites, the developers. I was a developer for 25 years before I did other things. And developers are focused on change. That's what they do. They change stuff. They are frequently coddled by management. Anybody disagree with that statement? No. You believe that they are not coddled by management? They are. My evidence says, my data suggests that developers are coddled by management. You think they're not? Sometimes, there's a lot of abusive relationships in the world. So they hold the keys to the change kingdom, though, and they basically suck. But then we have our other friends. Usually in this room, this is more people than the first group. Anybody, who all here identify as a developer? A real developer, not some half-assed developer, a DevOps person or whatever. You write code all day. Okay, that's not bad. That's not many. Who in here identifies as an operator, not a developer? Who are the rest of you here for? Okay. Operators are focused on homeostasis. They are usually berated by management in my experience. They are gatekeepers to state and change. And they also suck. Sorry. And then we have these assholes. Management. They're focused on something arbitrary like goals. And in my opinion, they generally hold little value except as indicators of anachronistic Taylorism. Does everybody know what Taylorism is? Scientific management. Basically, it's the idea that a manager is the only person who really knows what the hell is going on, and you're just the hands. If it wasn't for that genius manager telling you what to do, You would be useless. Oh, how did it feel? How did it feel? They all think this still, by the way. And then there's these assholes. They're the worst version. This is like a manager on egotistical steroids. Now, I am not a huge fan of executives. If there are any executives in the room, I'm so sorry that you're here because you're going to have to bear with me. You're not really. You can just leave again, just like everybody else. But now we get down to the brass tacks of it all. What is bullshit? So I have a baseball analogy. You are the batter. That is the baseball diamond. The thing at the top across from you is what I like to refer to as the apex of ignorance. It doesn't matter the fact that this is a baseball diamond. Everybody knows how you run around the baseball diamond. Do we have any foreigners in here that don't understand baseball? Hope not. Okay. Now, I have a very strict definition of what true and false means. In order to tell a lie, you must know what is true. That sucks, doesn't it? If you tell me a lie, it's because you know what is true and you said something different. In order to tell me the truth, you have to know what is true and tell me what is true. Okay? Does everybody understand my definition of true and lie? Lie, these are actions. This is not big T truth as in like it is true, it is not true. I'm talking about if you are going to lie to me, you have to know you're lying to me. It is a sin of action. Everything else is more or less bullshit or some form of bullshit. You don't know what's true or false, but you said it anyway. Kind of fuck you. A little bit. But not necessarily. Because there's also delusion. There's the shortstop in this arrangement where you believe your bullshit. You really believe something. You can't verify it. You can't prove it. No offense to anyone in their belief systems in here, but most religions fall into delusion at that level by my definition. It's okay if you believe stuff. I don't care. I lived through a bunch of delusions. I think Anne loves me. Remember? And I told you, I don't know that. So the important piece here is back to that word, justified belief. It's really close to the truth, but you can't prove it. You can't prove it. And then, of course, naive realism living over here. That's where I put it. You guys can have a different place. You might think of all these things very differently, but this is how we're talking. This is what we're going to talk about. That's my version of bullshit. Okay, that seems terrible. There's supposed to be a slide. Let's go back. Oh, there we go. So we've all done work at companies, or I hope most of us have for the most part. What does that look like to everybody? Yeah, waterfall, right? If you're old enough, and most of you are, I can tell, you've been involved in waterfall development processes. Well, did it look peaceful? It's not. It did work, and it still works. Most software that is still running today was developed in some version of waterfall, and it works poorly. But then we came Agile. Then we got Agile, the Agile Manifesto, which I failed to put on a timeline because I'm an idiot. And agility was the key. Speed and agility. Doesn't that look dynamic? Don't you feel empowered by this methodology for doing things fast and getting results? Who here has been involved in an agile management practice? Almost everybody. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up if it worked really well for you. That's what I thought. It's okay, right? Like there's a lot of hand moving. There's a lot of queen waving out there. Elbow, elbow, wrist, wrist, elbow, elbow, wrist, wrist. It didn't work. It works, but it works poorly like everything else. Don't get hung up on methodologies. They all suck. And the key about them all sucking is you. Because you are part of that process. It's not the process, it's the fact that the people in it, you included, cannot exactly conform to it. It's not really even possible for you to do that. You shouldn't feel bad about it, although it does sound like I'm up here kind of shit-talking. I don't mean to poop speak everybody in the room, but I am. All righty. So remember we're talking about the fact that DevOps is bullshit, right? So what does it mean to be doing the DevOps? Let's do the brief history. No kidding, I got bored picking up URLs for history of DevOps. I like history of DevOps. And like just page after page after page from every company in the universe. So this is going to take a little bit, but we're going to do a little timeline so we can talk about the things about DevOps. And we're going to start In 1972, what happened in 1972? Anybody in this room? There's one. C. Carnegie and Ritchie released the C programming language. Huh? Well, okay. You want to keep going? I mean, you were clearly there. In 1977, something really important happened, which was I got into software. And by the way, I recognize that, calling myself a giant in this is complete bullshit. In 1980 something, there was this thing that happened in the UK. It was called IDLE. Does anybody know what IDLE is? A few people. It's a process, right? It's like it's a series of well-documented processes. You can hate it or you can love it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like Agile and Waterfall. The problem is not the process. The problem is you. What did you say? Oh, okay. Are we still stuck on 1972? Everybody, let's move on. There's a lot of time in between here and there. 1991, this kid made this thing that we pretty much use a lot of. But this other dude, this weird dude from the Netherlands, made a thing that, whatever. So in 1993, we had Mark Burgess release the first version of CF Engine. Does everybody know what CF Engine is? No? Anybody know what CF Engine is? Wow, I thought more of you would know that. You're all so old. So CF Engine is one of the very first configuration management tools. It is, in fact, the one in which all real configuration management tools, to a certain degree, owe their lineage. Mark Burgess is a freaking genius. And his book should be required reading. If you haven't read it, you should read it. Remember Slackware? Everybody? Any Slackware people in town? There you go. There's my peeps. All right. That was in 93. We're going to party like it's 1999. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead. His purpleness. And in 2000, 2001, some stuff happened. Was anybody in here working during the 1999 to 2001 range? Okay, everybody's working. Remember how fun and shitty it was? Remember how much money people were willing to spend for things like Y2K or for getting on the interwebs and getting their digital presence and all this other crap? That's what I did. Man, I had $30,000 expense reports. That was for a week. It was awesome and terrible until some dudes flew some planes into some buildings and then the world kind of went crazy for a little while. Now, if we're going to continue on, then in 2004, we got Ubu. Seriously? Maybe it'll come back. I don't know. Probably not. You guys are killing me, man. Ah! Score. We got the Ubus. In 2005, we got Maven 2. I will assert, and I will fight you verbally and physically. This is the best build tool that has ever existed and likely to be the best one that ever will. Sorry, dude. Yeah, show me the life cycle in your shitty build tool. Fedora, the current type, came out. Hudson, one of the first CI/CD engines. CI/CD is a seminal piece of DevOps work. Very important. Also, Puppet. In my opinion, the first usable configuration management system that ever existed. CF Engine, I got stories. So, in 2008, we had Stack Overflow. Can anybody imagine what life would be like without Stack Overflow? Like it's that I don't want to think about it, right? But can you imagine what Y2K and 2000 would have been like with Stack Overflow? Would the .com bubble have really exploded if we had actual answers to stuff? More importantly, in 2008, a fellow that I know by the name of Andrew Schaefer pushed this Agile infrastructure talk up at a conference, and literally he got so much negative feedback that he didn't even show up for his own talk. But this guy, Patrick, did. And he kind of understood and got it. Patrick Dubois. Continuum, another CI/CD engine. I don't know why I even put there. I think just because I'm an idiot. In 2009, Chef and Capistrano. There are a lot of people who think Chef is superior to Puppet, and those people are interesting, but it is more popular, or was, probably not. Does everyone know what Capistrano is? Automated delivery tool. Very few people now because nobody uses it, except for the dudes at 37 Signals who basically wrote it. vSphere came out in 2009. Now, VMware existed before, and I didn't put it down there because you can see how crowded that crap is. But the first DevOps Days Ghent, was in 2009. That's not that long ago. And I'm already talking about it like it's bullshit. So that was he did that because in August of that year, John Allspaw did a talk about 10 deploys a day at Flickr. 10 deploys a day. Now, that's not weird now. I mean, I can do 10 deploys in like 40 minutes, 20 minutes sometimes now. But in 2009, that shit was unheard of. I mean, if for the children in the room who were not there during that shit was hard. It still is, you just got a lot of tools for it now. So, in 2010, we got continuous delivery from Jez Humble and the other guy that nobody ever remembers. And in 2011, we got Jenkins, the fork of Hubson, because, Java, Oracle, et cetera, et cetera. And we got Travis. I didn't realize Travis was this old until I went looking. And then, in 2013, we got Docker. Who could not live without Docker? For whom would your job suck without Docker? You're all liars. It would suck for all of you. We also got the Phoenix project, possibly the definitive Bible in the world of DevOps. And, come on, what in the dickens? We got Kubernetes 1.0 in 2015. That was 8 years ago. Now we're going to subtract 3 years because of COVID, and that's really 5 years ago. So we're going to skip ahead to 2023 because we're going to come back to this thing for a bit. We've walked through all these tools. These tools were seminal. They were important, things built on top of them. There's tons of other tools, tons of them. We're skipping this part because this is where all the shit happened. But all the tools over here were important. They are why we can do what we do. They are why we are able to do the things we do. Even if we're not using those tools are why they happen. Now, what do we mean when we talk about performing DevOps activities? Is it a role? Are you a DevOps? That's a stupid name. Anybody here have a title? DevOps? Bullshit. Some of you have that title. You just won't tell me. It's on my fucking LinkedIn page. Right at the top. I don't like it, but it's true. That's what they call me. So I do apologize if you got sucked into a DevOps team, because that's bullshit. Is it the CAMS model? Well, I do apologize if you thought you were deving the ops and you don't know what the CAMS model is. Is it about elevating developer experience? Who cares about them? I do, sort of. I mean, I still write a shitload of code. Is it about the operator experience? I'm so sorry if you think anybody but you gives a shit, because they don't. Again, remember, not coddled by management, berated by management. Is it about the customer experience? Well, if you don't know that it's all about the customer experience, you're kind of an idiot. The only people that matter, period, not you, not your dad, not your mom, not your boss, not your coworkers, the customer is what matters. If anybody but the customer matters, you got your priorities wrong, brah. Now, there is one more. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, when things were rotten was 15 years ago. 2014 was the last good year for me in DevOps. In between 2010 and 2014, the cool shit happened. There were always new tools that actually made sense and weren't weird. There was DevOps Days everywhere. There was DevOps Enterprise Summit that happened every year and had piles of people. There were some things I didn't care for, like DORA, the DevOps Research Association, I think they're called. They produce a bunch of metrics that make managers crazy, make managers think crazy things. They're not wrong. The metrics are not false. They're misinterpreted, but they're not false. But 2014 was before most of the recruiters understood what we did if we were DevOps people. I was a DevOps person from 2004. how could you possibly be a DevOps person in 2004? There wasn't DevOps. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't call it that. But we did all these things. We were trying to improve the lives of everybody, both sides of the equation. We were trying to bring the houses together, and we've been doing this. I've been doing this for like 19 years. Now, the two sides of the houses don't like each other. I mean, they're both assholes. And they both think the other guys are assholes. Like, I'm right. Remember, naive realism? My way is the right way. You must be wrong. No, you can't change that. No, you have to change that. So, but before the recruiters got involved, before the managers didn't understand what it was, before we had name changes, well, that's what we'll talk about in just a minute. We protected the ignorant with name changes before the tools exploded on us in 2015 and 16. Before the enshittification that came from all these things. If anybody, I did not make that word up. That is the word that was coined by Cory Doctorow. But I cannot think of a better word to describe my industry for the last 8 years. And remember, this was the best of times for me, and it still sucked. Like, it was still constant battles with people who didn't know what they wanted and indistinct requirements and shifting needs. And if somebody says the word pivot to me in a straight face again, I'm probably going to punch them. We're going to pivot, Mykel. I'm like, oh, you're going to pivot, all right. It was not some boomer golden age. Sorry for boomers. I mean, I'm close. Gen X, bitches. But it was not some weird thing where, like, oh, remember back how awesome it was in the 50s? You mean back when polio was a thing? Yeah, it was phenomenal. Back when the infant mortality rate was super duper high? Yeah, great back then. But it wasn't the worst. It wasn't the worst. It was okay. Work was good. I was learning things. Probably everybody was learning. People learned a lot of useful stuff. It was possible to know enough useful things. Now, that was the second act. Remember this slide? We said we'd talk about it later. What do we mean when we perform DevOps activities? Well, I can answer that now. Super easy. We just renamed it. We renamed ops to DevOps. We did. Managers and recruiters renamed operations to DevOps. Let me be real clear about something. DevOps and operations are not the same thing. One of them is a behavior and the other is a philosophy. You can do DevOps activities as an operations person. Technically, you can't be a DevOps person unless what you are is like a guiding force to multiple people. You got to be basically a manager, an asshole. But the cool piece about this, the great thing was that, like everybody suddenly became a DevOps guy. Weird, right? Like overnight. People who were like nothing short of like straight up neckbeard Linux administrators who had not seen the light of day for years except for the green glow of a screen were like hardcore DevOps practitioners. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you're not wide enough for that. Well, maybe you're wide enough, but you're not T-shaped enough for that. You need to be kind of M-shaped to be a DevOps practitioner. You need several depths, not just one. And I'm not going to argue with this, right? This is straight up from recruiters and managers. We made a mistake. Everybody. We made a mistake by doing that. We made it so that it was impossible for somebody who wasn't involved deeply in DevOps to have the slightest effing clue of what it meant. Now, that part is bullshit, but what you do is not bullshit. What you do is work. That doesn't mean anything. It's just not DevOps. Okay? Fine, no problem. It shouldn't be DevOps. It's operations. Who in here, I mean, this is self, so the answer is probably going to be relatively high for other people I've asked. Who here has a job who has the actual title, nothing but operations in it? Come on. I'm not going to pick on you. It's close enough. Sysadmin. All right, let's go with that. What, 3? No, sweet. Oh, I will slap you, boy. Yes, it does. No, but yes. It's operations. SRE is the closest thing to operations that really exists now. So it's operations maybe with some syntactic sugar in it. You know, a little gloss on it. I can write some Python scripts and talk to some web servers and get some stuff. Vault will give me some crap. It'll give me a password if I need it. Now remember this? Yeah, we all remember that. Well, this is what I think about the last 8-ish years. It's not my favorite, okay? We had DevOps teams, like screw you, there's no such thing as a DevOps, it's an operations team. Stop minimizing the importance and relevance of operations, of being good at being an operator. Stop calling people by a different name. I get it, it's 2023, people call themselves by whatever name they want to now, it's fine. I'm okay with that. But I'm not really okay with it at the DevOps level. Everything was monorepos. Some genius at Google thought this was the best idea ever, and you may think it's good too, it's fine. I'm okay with that. But, like, oh, it's the only way to do stuff. I will slap you, boy. There were 11 billion custom resource definitions that came out in the last 8. I mean, God, so many. And GitOps. I commit my shit to Git, and it just goes, y'all. I got a hook in there, and Argo CD does the deploys. Fuck you. And there you go, buddy. You're right over there. You're on the other list of things I hate. It's fine. I put you on the page. Don't feel bad. You know what you are, though? You're an operator. Your job is to be a good operator. I hope you're good at it. And if you're not, I'm not going to ask you. There'll be no quiz later, I promise. You could just suck at that. At least you have matching certs. And the newest one, my favorite, platform engineering. Dude. Okay, so platform engineering and SRE, these are operational tasks. They're a subdivision of operations. But everybody wants to be special, and everybody wants to have they got to make a new tool. Remember the tool explosion? Got to make a new tool to do the thing because nobody can be trusted to be an adult at work. Now, I don't know why nobody can be trusted to be an adult. I'm not even sure I can be trusted to be an adult, although I'm usually pretty responsible. But in any case, let's ask ourselves how this happened. And the easy answer is managers and recruiters just crapped on everybody by saying, hey, I don't really understand what DevOps is. It's operations, right? Yeah, you're a DevOps guy now. Because some manager went, I need a DevOps guy, because somebody told them they did. And they didn't know what it was, and we didn't have a good answer. And in fairness, we didn't have a good answer at all. We didn't. These poor bastards had no idea what it was we were trying to do. So they were like, it's got ops in it, it must be operations. And in the absence of certainty, people will make shit up that suits them. They will. You do. Everybody, sorry, I'm really confrontational. I don't mean that in a mean way. I do too. It's because you're made out of human meat. It did not help so much that for the last several years there has been a mad scramble for speed and cash. Every asshole on the planet wants to be an innovator and a founder, and he needs a new startup, and if you're one of those guys, well, my mama said, you can't say something nice. It just accelerates the enshittification. All of this scramble for money and speed. 10, 15 years ago, we did work and we were like kind of happy with it. You're probably proud or happy of what you do every day. I hope so. I really do. I hope you're at least reasonably satisfied that your contribution is accurate and valuable and that you are dealt with fairly. You're probably not. But that you are treated well, you're probably not. I hope these things, I do. In the absence of me not liking you and wanting you to suffer, I want you to be happy. I promise you, if I wanted you to be unhappy, I'd figure out a way. I'm real good at that. Now, this is the article from Cory Doctorow, The Enshittification of TikTok. But it is about, as they say, how platforms die. I strongly recommend reading this article. Now, Cory Doctorow is a commie. Okay, he's not a commie. He's like a far left socialist. Let's go with that. But he's not wrong. He's real smart. And everything he says in there, I agree with. Some of it is actually inarguably true, and the rest of it is pretty justifiable. I got this other thing from a friend of mine. Mykel Cote said this, in fact, he said it a month ago. Just imagine this whole conversation, but with idle instead of DevOps. Like, the idle folks were all like, hey, you just need to read the books and get it together. And really, the way that you insulate this bullshit from happening to DevOps is you kind of build barriers around what he refers to as mainstream shitification. He is also a fan of Cory Doctorow's work, by the way. So everything is shitification for Mykel at this point. Cote's a weird guy. But it says a successful movement has to be both monumental in thinking and practical in application and transformation. DevOps really wasn't. Didn't have a good definition. He's actually wrong about some of this. That's okay. In order to move forward and to armor yourself and armor the effect of what we're trying to do, then you have to be able to say those things about it. Now, another thing is the way operations is managed is kind of bullshit. Less than 20%. That is the ratio of operators to developers in most places. In fact, that's the high number. It's usually lower than that. That's 1 to 5 if you're like not really good at math. That's crap, man. This is bullshit. Like, you're talking about 5 times as many people introducing change and one person going, hold on, hey, I got it. Oh, shoot. The recruitment of operational resources is bullshit. There's no development for operators. It's not a thing you get taught in school. I'm not even sure where you would learn to be good at operations other than having some guy with a stick just hit you in the back every time you fucked up. That's how it happened to me. I don't know. You guys may have a different way. I don't mean returning Node.js. I mean like real development. And that's across multiple locations. It appears that knowing DevOps is just some skill set, and that means you know literally everything about every tool that has ever existed. Who in here is a certified Kubernetes administrator? 1, 2. Shit, that's fewer than I thought, but okay. Who in here administrates Kubernetes? That's a bit more, right? And who in here knows how to administrate Kubernetes, but doesn't do it? See, there's this idea that when you get hired in a DevOps position, which is operations, remember, we renamed it, that you're going to know how to do every tool that's ever been. And let's face it, you're going to be working with operators, not the cuddliest people on the planet. So when you fuck up, they're going to be like, what the hell's wrong with you? You don't know how to do, you can't kube control apply, what's wrong with you? Your gamma's all fucked up, son. This is bullshit. Now, let's talk about the State of the Union. What do we do about all this? For renaming ops to DevOps, well, I'm just going to go ahead and say that ship has sailed. That's a done deal. We're not going to have any change in that. If you end up getting hired in real operations as a job, that's unusual in this day and age. I'm just going to have to deal with it. If it annoys you, you're going to have to get over it too. I mean, I really appreciate y'all letting me bitch about it. You were trapped in here. Or I was trapped in here. It depends on which way you look at it. As for the practices of a nominal DevOps practitioner, let's say nominal. Everybody knows what nominal means? In name only, right? You're a DevOps practitioner. You're an operations person. There's a bunch of stuff, but Drake says you could just do better. You could. You could increase your value by applying and adopting DevOps principles. You could cultivate a culture of safety. Does everybody understand what safe culture means? I mean, if anybody familiar with blamelessness? Blameless organizations? Like a blameless, John Allspaw had this to say about blameless organizations. He had this person sitting there talking about how many times do you have to blow up a deployment to get fired? Sit down, or stand up if that's the case. And he's like, once, and these people stood up, and twice, and some other people stood up, and 3 times, and like most of the rest of the people stood up. And he said 5 times, and almost everybody stood up. And he said 10 times, and almost everybody stood up except for John. And he said 100 times. John stays sitting. He says, we don't fire people for fucking up. We don't blame them because they made a mistake. We figure out how they made that mistake, and we make it so they don't make that mistake again. Maybe they were just, were they careless? Well, we'll have a talk with them about being careless. Were they untrained? Did they have access to a thing they shouldn't have had? Like this is a novel idea to a lot of people, especially in operations. What with the, let's call it, heightened emotional state that people tend to be in when things go awry. Blamelessness induces psychological safety. I don't fire people for fucking up. I never have. I won't do it. Now, people that I work for will, and there's nothing I can really do about that. But I will simply not fire you for making a mistake. You're making a mistake is an opportunity for me to make a new test. Like, I got to figure out why you were able to make that mistake. Are you a dumbass? I can fix that. Are you overly privileged? I can fix that. Did you just not know how to do it? Well, that's my fault. I'm the one that needs to be fired. Blamelessness is super important because psychological safety is incredibly important to people, because when they feel like they are going to be persecuted, they will hide shit from you all the time. A lot of this work comes from Sidney Dekker and all of his information and study in airplane crashes. What's it called? The Something of Human Failure. There's a book by Dr. Sidney Dekker. You should read it. The Something of Human Failure. I can't remember sorry, my Braveheart. Really important book, though. Because I don't know if you know it or not, but you are guaranteed to make a mistake. Guarantee. Look to automation as a means of accomplishing actually essential tasks, not just more tasks. Doing more is not important. Doing what is necessary well and automatically is. Track your success. Collect measurements and metrics. Collect them longitudinally. It does not matter what your failure rate is today. What matters is the derivative of the curve of your failure rate. For those who are bad at calculus, that means the angle of the, what's the word? Now I'm bad at calculus. The angle of the line that hits at that, what? The slope, right, of the curve at that point. I knew there was a word, thank you. Or I didn't know it, probably a guess. But it's important to know that as long as that thing is pointed up, things are good, and if it's pointed down, they're bad. It doesn't matter if you're up here. If you're pointing down, not so bueno. If you're down here, it doesn't matter, but if you're pointed up, it's good. Improvement. It does not matter what the number is now. What matters is where are you going. Track your metrics and results longitudinally. Yes, somebody will use them against you. If your metrics are bad enough to be used against you, well, whose fault is that? Share your knowledge with others freely. This one is one that probably matters to somebody in here, but I'm not going to figure out who it is, and I don't really care. There are somebody in here, because there usually is somewhere, and there's usually 3 or 4 in a group this size, who just knows some stuff that they won't tell other people. They do. They keep secrets. Secrets are the demon that kills teams. Document what you do. Show other people how you work. Make sure that you train and cross-train and co-train the people and learn what they know. If you don't, you kind of suck. You're a bad teammate. If you're on my team and you do this, I will find a way for you to have a debilitating accident, so I don't have to work with you anymore, and I'll lose that knowledge happily, because I'm sure we can find somebody who knows whatever magic crap you know. Now, if anybody was following along and didn't know what the CAMS model for DevOps was, culture, automation, measurement, sharing. The 4 things I just talked about. That's the CAMS model. That is how you make things better at the operational and development level. There's some more stuff, but testing your shit. Please test your shit. It is not that hard to write inspect tests. It's not that hard to write Sentinel policy management. There are a bunch of policy tools. There's stuff you can do now. Who in here, I know I'm going to ask, who in here actually tests their infrastructure in some meaningful way, where you think, I feel very confident in that? That's not bad. More than 0? No, it's not bad. It's hard, all right? That's hard. That shit is hard. Knowing testing infrastructure is so much harder than testing software. So much harder. I do both of them all the time, and I promise you, it is like 2 orders of magnitude harder. It is also 2 orders of magnitude more valuable. If you can know that the port needs to be closed on a server, and then you just have a test that just, like every time, like twice a day, you just run a test, and like, oh, shit, that port's open. Which asshole opened the test? Open the port. You just basically automate the running of your CI/CD, your tests. And you can do this with various tools. I'm not going to get into that. This is not a tools talk. This is a don't be an asshole talk. But alignment is probably the most important thing you can get from anybody. And I'm not talking about this, although I'm not necessarily not talking about it. Try to be up here. Try not to be down here. Predictability means that people can trust you. Trust comes from predictability. You trust people are going to act a certain way. That means you can think you can predict what they're going to do. That's how trust comes about. And when they act unpredictably, when they do a thing you don't expect them to do, you're like, well, that might erode my trust just a tad. Value-based alignment is what I'm really talking about. Alignment in vision, alignment in roles and responsibilities. We all know what we're doing. We all know why we're doing it. Alignment in team dynamics. How does this work? Who gets to be in charge here? Who gets to tell me no? This is sometimes very challenging in an operational team because they're like typically very spread out. You have a bunch of weird, different requirements. So I only manage authentication. Great. Now I got to go through the authentication gauntlet. I only manage Rancher. Cool. Now I got to go through the dashboard gauntlet. Finding out how that works, getting alignment on it, super important. Okay, so I'm kind of negative. I know that. I've been with me for 56 years. But it's not all terrible, and I really like this particular quote from Cryptonomicon. The key piece here is, Godfrey was, by birthright, a stupendous badass. Albeit in the somewhat narrow technical sense that he could trace his ancestry back a long line of slightly less highly evolved, stupendous badasses, to that first self-replicating gizmo, which, given the number and variety of its descendants, might justifiably be described as the most stupendous badass of all time. Everyone and everything that wasn't a stupendous badass was dead. You are a stupendous badass. You have a 3-pound neural net processor that works to some degree well or poorly, sitting between your ears. You have some programming that has been applied to that you may or may not be able to retrofit. Probably not. It's hard. But you are a stupendous badass. You have the keys to the universe right here at the end. Well, probably you do. I'm sorry if somebody's lost a thumb. It's very insensitive of me. But you have the keys to the universe right here. The grippy hand, the little fingers, the very dexterous fingers, the extremely high quality Mark I optic system. You just could be more badass if you applied some degree of principle to your work. Thank you for your time. This is a link to the PDF of that presentation, if you want it. Or you're getting rickrolled. You never know. Thank you. So it's funny. Ken is my friend, and he actually just took a hit for you by scanning the thing, because he has my phone number, and he will bitch at me if that actually rickrolls him. Anybody any questions? I will answer some form of question. You may not like the answer.
How much of DevOps is just compensating for the fact that management does coddle the programmers?
On a scale of 0 to 100%, I'd say about 70%. Honestly, it's probably about 70%. Now, again, I feel like it's true. I mean, 30% is because operations is kind of dicks. I mean, you're crotchety on a good day, or at least I am. But I am, in fact, a developer. I wrote 20 or 30,000 lines of code last year. I am an operator. I do a bunch of operational bullshit for a couple of companies. And DevOps is not even really here anymore. I don't think we even talk about any of those things. Theoretically, they've all gotten into the zeitgeist of software. That's what people would like to believe. It is not what I see. And so the truth of the matter is, right now, probably about 2%, because it doesn't happen at all. But when at its heyday, I'd say it's about 70%. I worked real hard to make developers' lives easier so that my life would be easier. I worked real hard for that. Anybody else?
Wouldn't the true solution be to separate sysadmins and developers back to the way things were before?
Where the hell is the microphone? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Can you repeat the question? I'm so sorry.
Wouldn't it be better to go back to developers or the developers and the sysadmins run the infrastructure?
How old are you?
30.
We'll talk later, but let me talk to you about the 90s for a minute. I was a developer during the 90s, and I was a ginormous asshole. I built large ticking time bombs on Fridays, threw them over a wall, and was like, I'm out, bitches. No, it wouldn't. I mean, the name isn't important. The name of DevOps isn't important. That's just my clickbaity talk. Thanks for coming to my clickbait talk, TED Talk. But in the end, separation doesn't help this problem. It actually is the problem. The problem is that people think they're special. All people think they're special. They think it's naive realism. What I do is important. What you do is, the name is not the deal.
When I say separation, I don't really necessarily mean locking the developers in a box and locking the sysadmins in another box. What I mean by that is that the developers aren't going and trying to be sysadmins, because that's what I've seen a lot.
Oh yeah, they're terrible at it.
Yeah,
super bad.
That's more what I mean, because that's what I've seen DevOps turn into very recently.
Yeah. Well, for a little while it was what DevOps really means is we give pagers to developers. I'm like, I would like them to have a pager because I want to call them and say some words at 2 o'clock in the morning. But no, I mean, I don't think that's the answer. That's not the answer. The answer is integration. It's the same on the other side. Operators are really shitty software engineers. Real bad at it. Y'all are real bad at it. From my perspective, some of the worst. You're worse than most terrible JavaScript developers, and that's saying something. Oh, sorry, we've got another guy. Oh.
Yeah, so, my stance is, I think it's bullshit that devs just write code, push it over the wall, SRE's got to deal with it or whatever.
Sure, let's say yes.
Right. 99% of all devs are just writing Python and fake code and stuff, myself included, right? So we're not writing C. Do you think that the next generation really should just be trained as operators that can write minimal code?
Well,
despite the few jobs of people writing, real things that make things work.
So, first of all, I still don't think it's possible to. I'm not even sure you can train an operator. I'm not sure you can formally educate an operator. I don't know that it's not one of those heuristically built jobs where you have to feel the pain. It might be one of those things where you just literally have to have the right kind of callus and sting, you're like, oh no, don't touch me there. I got a boo-boo. It might be that. Should operators be taught how to write code? Yes, if you're in software, you should be taught how to write code correctly. Should developers know the requirements around operations? Well, I think we all know what I think about that. Of course you should. Don't be an asshole. But were we going to do that? Well, no, we're not going to do that. In fact, I believe that for the next 3 or 4 years, this is going to get worse, not better. I think there will be another social explosion of some form. Maybe there'll be an SRE uprising or some crap like that. And, there'll be pitchforks and torches, and maybe we'll have another DevOps-like thing. And maybe you'll have a golden age during that period of time. I plan to be retired. And I don't want to be, I am negative, but I don't want you to, I'm not kidding. You are all stupendous badasses. You are. Everybody is. And you could be better. Everybody could be better. They are not incentivized to do so. This guy right there.
Thanks. To that point, grew up in .com. I was working, building servers and also running network cables with people after hours, right? So
Sure.
that was a time when, for the younger people, that was a time when not everyone knew everything, and you just kind of went with it and learned it.
Yeah, like now.
And what I see, I have 2 kids that have graduated from college so far. I got a few more going. And what I see is a watering down and an oversimplification and kind of pigeonholing people. And I think the universities are creating the separation. And then people are just programmed to us versus them kind of thing. So I didn't see you blame universities at all.
I'm going to. I shouldn't have to blame them. Everybody should already know how they fucked up. Computer science degrees are false. They're fake. That is a fake thing. If you have a computer science degree, congratulations, etc. But it does not teach you how to be an operator. It does not teach you how to be a programmer. It's a math thinking degree. The end. I mean, you might learn how to write some Java.net something, something, something. I do not hire college graduates to do real work. I hire college graduates to be blank slates, period. If you show up with the ability to write code, well, we'll see about that. Yes, sir.
Do you think that there's a better label for DevOps people that could be used? The best one I know of is SRE, where it's you're an operator that can vaguely write Python, usually poorly, rather than use the DevOps leader?
I don't think there needs to be another term than operator. I think that all operators ought to know how to write code. I think that you don't need, I don't think you need that term. You need the term for the money. By the way, you need the terms for money. You do, because otherwise they will crap on you monetarily. It's truth. Again, recruiters and and hiring managers. But I don't think you need that term, but it doesn't matter what the term is if the term is an operator to me, because I don't think that it means anything more. It could. I had a guy give me basically exactly this argument, the argument version of your question. And I was like, sure, dog, whatever. But, SREs and platform engineering, that's all the new shit. It's that's really what operations is about. And I'm like, what sort of bubble do you live in? There are dudes who are sweeping out the corners of data centers and checking to see where the rats chewed through Cat 6. I've done that. And so the SREs are not the now future. They are a tiny slice, and there's this huge body of people below it. This dark matter version of operators that take up most of the space in that area, and you got to in order for it to be SREs or FUBARs or whatever they want to call them, you'd have to grab those people and pull them all up, which I think is everyone's responsibility. I do. I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you can be wrong about your question, but I don't think that it is. I don't think there needs to be another label. I think there needs to be a fundamental change in thinking, and I think DevOps was gonna be that fundamental change, and then there were some recruiters and managers who screwed it up. Hope that helps. Do you have somebody?
I noticed you didn't call out project managers specifically in your talk.
No.
Do you feel like they are the blood-sucking vampires of time that caused most of this?
Well, in management, so yeah. So I didn't call them out because almost every talk I've ever given for the last 15 years has called them so many awful names that I just thought maybe this time I wouldn't be a dick about project managers. But yeah, project managers are, I believe that project managers and the PMO office, for everybody who has one of those, that is like some special ring of hell. Now, they don't have to be. They don't. I have worked with really good project managers who were badass at what they did. They motivated, they collected the information, they got out of everybody's way, all that shit. I have done that. I've seen those people. They are not common. they are about as common as really good coders who do operations jobs. So, like, if I'm going to shit talk them too bad, well, I got a whole load of people who could get in that same category.
As for the coding thing, I actually was in the 90s in school, and I was the digital Unix administrator, and yeah, Dux was a special form of hell, but we had a Perl script for everything, every deployment, every account creation. So back in the day, I think DevOps was, it was you were an operator, you were a sysadmin.
Sure.
So I think it's fair that, a sysadmin knows how to program, but likewise, from that experience, I make all my new college grads, they spend 6 months on the help desk.
That seems like a good idea. I don't necessarily argue that idea as being a bad thing. I feel like there needs to be some, I just don't think people suffer enough. I don't. I don't think there's enough callous and enough suffering. And I would consider your